Today, I'm going to do a very special episode that is very near and dear to my heart. It is the 20 things that I've learned in 20 years. I did this last year when I turned 20, and I'm about to turn 21 in September. So it just felt right to do it again. It's okay to know where you want to go, but not know how you want to get there. And it's something that I struggle with, honestly, because I think I've always been someone very ambitious, very driven, kind of always had a clear vision for where I wanted to go with my life. And obviously that has changed over the years, but it's frustrating to know so deeply what you want to do, but have no idea how you're going to do it because it's such a dichotomy and it can be really frustrating. And it's something that I've learned and that I'm still learning to navigate and give myself grace with. Never regret the love that you showed someone, even if it wasn't received the way that you intended it to. So I think in the past, I criticized myself for, oh, I was so naive, or I was too nice to somebody who didn't deserve it. But I realized that at the end of the day, no matter who, no matter what, everybody deserves love. And the fact that you chose to show love and be kind and be vulnerable and giving to someone has nothing to do with them and everything to do with you. It's not a matter of, oh, did they deserve it? Or did they give that back to me? That doesn't matter, because it is in your nature and in your best interest to show up in a loving way and to be true to yourself. And if that's what you did, that's all you can do. Keep asking yourself why. I think there's always more to learn about ourselves, and a reason behind a reason and a motive behind a motive. And so when we just think we've finally understood ourselves, we're only just scratching the surface. I think there's so much introspection and exploration to do within oneself, and that's exciting. It can be scary, it can be overwhelming, but it's exciting and it's a lifelong venture. Keep asking yourself why. Keep trying to understand yourself and the way that you think, because that'll inform the way that you act. Humility is not just appreciating others, but not devaluing yourself. It's not just, oh, I can see and admire the success that somebody else has and feel happy for them. But there's a second step to that, which I think is harder. It's then not being hard on yourself and thinking, oh, why am I not there? Or why am I so behind? And not framing your appreciation for their success in relation to yourself as a failure, or yourself as being short of or lacking in some way or in some shape or form. Because I think in the past, I always thought, oh, I'm such a humble person because I'm able to appreciate other people's success. I don't look at someone's success and feel jealous. And that's great, but I think that that's just the first step. And I'm understanding that humility, true humility, is not just appreciating someone else's success, but also not thinking that you are a failure because you have not achieved that success as yet. Allow yourself to be a work in progress and accept that you always will be. And the key word here is progress. Yeah, there's work to be done, but the key word here is progress, meaning that we're always going to be a work in progress, but that means we're progressing in life. I know it's nice to think, oh, one day we'll finally have made it, or we won't struggle with these things anymore. They won't bother us anymore. And that's great. If the things that bother us today don't bother us 5 years from now, that's wonderful. But there will be something else that bothers us, something else that's testing us. And instead of being put down by that or let down by that, use that as fuel, because as long as you are alive, everything that comes with being alive will be at your feet. The good, the bad, the trials, the tribulations, everything. So take that as part of the collective life experience that you have. Only when you're dead do you not have any problems. As morbid as that might seem, but to have problems to be alive. What someone says is not always what you hear. And every time I get into an argument with somebody or somebody has upset me in any way, I realize that it's not necessarily what they have said, but what I have chose to hear or what I have been able to hear. You can only hear and take away something from someone based on how your own mind works and how you think and feel about yourself. And so somebody might say something to me like, oh, that was an interesting choice of words that you used. And I could immediately take it as, oh, they hated what I said. They're calling me stupid. They have a problem with the way I speak, right? And maybe that's the case, but maybe that's also not what they intended to convey to me. And that's just what I understood. Because maybe in my mind, I'm mulling over how I speak and I'm trying to find confidence in the words that I'm using. So when anybody says anything like that, I'm instantly projecting my insecurity or projecting my self-doubt or my ways of thinking onto what they said. So in a sense, I'm not hearing what they're saying, I'm hearing what I'm hearing and I think that they're saying, and those are not the same thing. Communication is so hard. Communication takes a listener and a speaker. Understanding that what someone says and what you hear is not necessarily the same can really be freeing and give yourself and the other person the benefit of doubt, which I think we all need. Solitude and loneliness are not the same thing. I think for a long time, I used to think that they're kind of the same thing, like being by yourself, being single, whatever you want to call it. But solitude is such a beautiful word if you think about it. It's about self-contentment, being okay in your own presence. In fact, being more than okay in your own presence, versus loneliness is a sense of lack, a sense of being alone, not by choice, but by circumstance. Versus I think in solitude, it's more freeing. It's more of a choice than anything else. And understanding that has been very, very foundational for me. You can be in solitude and not be alone. You can be single and not be alone or lonely. Some experiences show you what you don't want and who you are not, and they are just as important and valuable as those that do. It's great to want to meet somebody or have an experience and that be your moment of enlightenment that really puts you on a path to this is what I was meant to do, or this is who I am, and having that realization. And that's beautiful. And there is space for that in your life. But at the same time, those moments where you go through something or you meet somebody or you do something and you're like, this is not what I wanted, especially if it was something you thought you wanted, realizing this is not what I want can be as powerful, if not more, because then it puts you in a position to be open to those experiences that put you in touch with what you are meant to be doing, that you would have never been open to if you hadn't realized that what you thought was meant for you and what you thought you were supposed to be doing is not what you're meant to be doing and not what you are. When you realize how insignificant you are, you, in a sense, lessen your need to feel significant. In an individualistic society like the United States, I think it's easy to think that we are the center of the world, that everything revolves around us, me, and that the most important thing is us. And yes, it's important to take care of yourself, and this is your life. Yes, all these things are true and not mutually exclusive, but at the same time, when you take a walk in nature or you stand in a crowded place with thousands of people, you realize how insignificant you really are on the grand scheme of things. Tomorrow, if you didn't wake up in the morning, this world would still continue to go on. Life would still continue to go on. And I think it's a scary but humbling thought. If we are insignificant, guess what? That also means that everything that we think is the worst thing in the world, stuff that is bothering us, is even more insignificant, right? If me as a human being has this much significance in the grand scheme of things, my fear about, oh, what am I going to do after I graduate? What if this happens or that happens? That is essentially non-existent in the grand scheme of things. And I think that's so important to put that into context, because it's easy to forget. Have self-awareness, but don't overanalyze yourself. I think I can be quite an overthinker at times, and I pride myself on self-awareness. I think that's really important, and it has helped me so far to know what I'm thinking and feeling and understand myself, and I hope to continue to do that. But at the same time, I think it's a fine line between self-awareness and overanalyzing yourself, because that leads to being overly critical of yourself and judging yourself. And it's the same way that self-help books can be good, but if you read too much of them, you're bound to feel like there's something wrong with you and that you're always in a position to need help. Versus if you read a few and then you take action based on what you've learned, then you're in a place to observe yourself progressing and evolving, rather than continuing to be in that cycle of, I'm not good enough. What do I need to change? What is wrong with me? Realizing that it's a fine line and giving ourselves grace to navigate that. What would I do if I had the confidence of a rich white man? As a woman of color, I feel like I need to shrink myself sometimes, or I doubt that things that have been possible for others will be possible for me as well. And I just think, I would not think any of these things if I was a rich white man. I would walk into that room thinking that I was the smartest person, or that I was successful, or that things are going to work out for me. I would not have a single doubt in my mind, right? I'm not saying that you need to walk into a room thinking you're the smartest person, because you should never walk into a room thinking that you're the smartest person in that room. In fact, if anything, assume that you're the dumbest person in that room. So you walk in with the intention to learn from other people and to meet people who are better than you and who will better you. Walk into that room with so much confidence and so much self-assurance, as a straight white rich man would. Sometimes you just got to embody that. Pay everything forward. But especially when someone was in your life in a moment where you really needed them, when you were really, really struggling, yes, it's important to be there for that person in their moment of need, but also to pay it forward to the next person. That is our ultimate duty in life. And when I do this, I don't think I'm doing anybody a favor. I'm just doing my duty. I'm fulfilling the role that someone else played in my life when I needed it the most in someone else's life. And I think life is so cyclical. When you're in a position to receive, you are inevitably in a position to give. Things have to break in order to be pieced back together. There is a beautiful concept in Japanese culture where they take broken ceramics, glue the pieces of broken shards of glass, ceramic together with golden paint. And the idea is that things that are broken are beautiful. And there is beauty in the process of putting back together the things that have broken. And ultimately, that's life. We break ourselves down and we build ourselves up. Things break us down and we build ourselves up. at the end of the day, is who you are intentional? Did you want to become who you are today? That's really important to ask yourself. And I think when you're broken down and you have the opportunity to build yourself back up, that's a moment to ask yourself. That's an inflection point. That your inner child will tell you everything you need to know about who you are. So it's really funny because for a long time, I think I wanted to disassociate myself from who I was when I was a kid, because I was dorky and I was nerdy and I wasn't anything like I am now in a lot of ways. And I think I was embarrassed. I didn't want to associate with those feelings. But thinking back, I think that she was so wise and she knew so much about who she really was. And for as long as I tried to deny that and try and distance myself from who I was at my core, the less happy I was. And the more happy I became, I noticed that I was gravitating towards who I always was and what I always enjoyed and what I was always good at. As we grow older, we only just find ourselves coming back to our inner child and who we were when we were kids, because that is our truest, most untouched, purest version of ourselves. It's not the attention that makes you great, but your greatness that brings you attention. It's not the likes and the follows that make somebody great. It's somebody being great that attracts those likes and follows. And I think it's so easy to misconstrue that. And, it's kind of a chicken or the egg situation sometimes in your head. But to realize that if you focus on being the best version of yourself, if you focus on mastering your craft, everything else that is a recognition of that, an acknowledgement of that will follow. It's not the other way around. It's not that you focus on getting that recognition or acknowledgement that your craft will improve or that you will feel worthy of that attention, of that acknowledgement. It's not like that. And it's easy to get caught up in that. I think for a while I did, but now I'm realizing that it's not like that. Change how you talk about money and having an abundance mindset. I think it's funny sometimes to be like, oh yeah, I'm a broke college kid, or I make these kind of jokes all the time. Yes, they're funny in the moment, but I think they're so destructive subconsciously, because how are you programming yourself to think about money and finances? How are you programming yourself to think about yourself as a spender, as somebody who has money rather than does not have money? Stop myself from using self-deprecating humor, because it's kind of the same concept. Yes, you can laugh about it in the moment and say, oh, I'm so stupid, or oh, I'm so ugly, or whatever self-deprecating humor that you use, but it's actually subconsciously affecting how you see yourself. And I vowed on that day to stop doing that, to never speak ill of myself, even as a joke, because it's not that funny. And yes, maybe it's funny in the moment and other people laugh, but that stays with you. It stays with me. And I never wanted that to happen again. But I realized I was doing that with money. Call me out also, if you, my friends are probably listening to this or seeing this, call me out if I ever make a joke about being broke, because I think we need to rewire how we talk about ourselves in relation to money. Your body is a vessel. Do not waste your life's purpose worrying about it. Everybody, to some extent, I think, struggles with their physical appearance and what they look like, and allocating more power than needed to that side of who they are and underplaying everything else. My body is not my life's purpose. It should not hinder me from doing the things that I'm meant to do and the things that I want to do. It should enhance that or just come along for the ride. And I think in realizing that, I have learned to put less focus on how I look and give less weight to how I look. So if I am having a bad body image day, or I don't feel beautiful one day, or I don't think something looks good, I don't let that ruin my day. Sure, I don't have to be ecstatic about it. I don't have to look at every picture of myself or every outfit and think that I look great. That's not what I'm saying. But I shouldn't let that make myself feel bad about myself. And I think in the past that it has led me to that and made me do that. So yeah, we're changing that together. A year can change everything. Never underestimate the power of 1 year. I think we underestimate how much we can do in 1 year and overestimate how much we can do in 5. And I think that this past year in particular, has really changed my life. I'm very grateful for that. I'm very, very grateful for that. I think I've made more strides in terms of understanding my purpose and what I want to do in life. I have learned to call myself out on a lot of things. I've learned to pour myself into a lot of things and just put myself out there more in ways that I hadn't done in the past. 1 year, clear intention, and friends and family who can help you fulfill that intention can change everything for you. Having seen how I have changed in the past year gives me hope for how I will continue to change next year and the year after that. And so it's not just, oh, I feel good about how far I've come, but I feel good about how far I'll go, because I know how much I can do in 1 year, how much anyone can do in 1 year. Your goal is to look back and laugh at yourself. This is how you know that you've grown. That's the goal. I don't want to be looking back on my life and wishing I was still like that. I want to be like her again. I don't want to be somebody who peaked in high school, like every version of myself to be the better version of myself. And so if that means looking back and not liking something, or finding something cringy or finding something embarrassing, that's okay, because that means I have grown. That means I am no longer that person, because I'm able to look back in retrospection. And I think that's the best thing. That is 20 things that I've learned in 20 years. So thank you for listening.